Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here's your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
They don't want to understand, my friends. People out there do not want to understand what is going on out here. Well, as it pertains to Trump and Iran, it is absolutely mind-boggling to me how people don't understand this. And candidly, I don't think they want to. I think for some people, it's an opportunity to show that they'll disagree with Trump. I think for some people, it's of course rooted in the fact that they hate him, his existence. They want to see him and the people that he endorses here in the primaries as we head into the 2026 midterms. By the way, Trump endorsed a lot of Hoosier Republicans today, running for the House, the state Senate, and the state House on Truth Social today. It's just, there's a lot going on out there, my friends. I can't believe that we're the only one that understands this here. This is so simple to me, what's going on as it pertains to Trump's comments and what we're really up against and everything. I'm going to break this down today. There's a lot to unpack. For starters, Trump has accepted a ceasefire agreement with Iran. Iran has allegedly agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz, which of course is the biggest point. That and of course ultimately the Iranian nuclear program coming to a complete stop. But that's what this has been about, this latest rendition of this tense situation with the Ayatollahs, the mullahs running the Islamic Republic of Iran. So we're going to talk about that today. Lots of things to discuss. I'm going to unpack this to the best of my abilities. We're going to start by talking about a Truth Social post Trump made earlier on Tuesday, which of course was the deadline day that Trump had given to the Iranians to open up the Strait of Hormuz and negotiate here, or they were going to face military strikes that would hit targets, Trump said, such as power plants and bridges and so forth. So we'll talk about this. Lots to unpack. Friends, I want to remind you before we do that we have had a partnership with MyPillow that literally started in April. I don't know the exact date. In April, I think 3 or 4 years ago. And MyPillow would like to say thank you to those of you who have purchased their products. I would like to say thank you for those of you who purchased the products after hearing them on this program. Supporting our advertisers is one of the most effective ways to help this program increase its reach, provide additional content, all those sorts of things. And so I'd like to say thank you for that. MyPillow is an America First company. You know Mike Lindell, running for governor, by the way, of Minnesota, which would be fantastic to see him win. He has, of course, founded MyPillow. He's the president of MyPillow, and he makes the product here in the United States. And he's got a bunch of items. In fact, when we started the partnership, I'll tell you, I didn't know. I knew they had other things. We looked into it, but I was amazed as we went through that process at just how many different products MyPillow offers, from pillows to sheets to towels to slippers, you name it, my friends. A whole lot more. MyPillow.com is where you can go. And if you use my name, Todd, During the checkout process, you're going to get a discount on virtually everything there, and you're going to help support this program. MyPillow.com, promo code Todd. All right, a whole bunch to get through, my friends. So, yesterday, Tuesday, Trump posted this in the, morning time, midday on Truth Social. And this got people really upset. This is what it says. I'm going to read this verbatim. This is Trump's post on Truth Social. Here we go. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. So people read this. Of course, this is being understood in the context of Trump's ultimatum. Trump basically promised to, well, as he put it here, wipe out, how did he put it? A whole civilization will die tonight. Talking about the Islamic Republic of Iran. And people jump to conclusions. Even people, folks, this pains me to say it. It does. It pains me to say, even people that have been on the side of conservatism, of the Republican Party, of Trump, people were quick to jump to the conclusion that Trump is going to nuke Iran and that this is a war crime. And people were actively calling for the 25th Amendment to be enacted. This all happened yesterday. Now, granted, there's a group of people who are prepared to enact the 25th Amendment or try to enact the 25th Amendment, which, by the way, takes Trump's cabinet members, a majority of them, to say that the president is unfit to be president of the United States and he can be replaced effectively. So there are people standing at the ready to help facilitate with that process if and when it is ever on the table officially. But this was said, listen, I got an article here in the stack of stuff. I'll get to it as kind of this unfolds. But it is just mind-boggling to me. I don't listen to other people. I come on here every single day to tell you what I think. I'm not influenced. I don't seek out the opinions of other people. I read things. The only reason I knew some of these names of well-known conservatives, well, I guess that's the group that's the name I'll give to this group of people. The only reason I knew it was because it was in an article that I was reading during show prep. And I cannot believe for a moment that I'm the only person that has a microphone and has a radio show, podcast. I can't believe it that I'm the only one who... This is just difficult. I want to have a little fun with this. I'm being a little bit dramatic. I'm the only one. But listen, I'm amazed at how people either capitulate or don't understand what's happening. They don't understand what we're up against. Folks, Iran having a nuclear weapon, it is not just something I come on here and rail about. These people, not the people of Iran, the people running the regime, the people who are in the ruling class there in Iran, the people who are in charge of the Islamic Republic, these people are, hear me say this, absolutely evil. They are absolutely evil. On top of that, they believe that they have a mandate from Allah to basically kill people who do not submit to the authority of Islam. I never thought that I would have to explain this in 2026, as we're now 25 years past 9/11. For those of you who were around, for those of you who were old enough to know what was going on or to be aware at least of what happened on 9/11, this is a real head scratcher in a sense to think that a generation later, a generation after 9/11, after we witnessed what we witnessed, after we witnessed Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, and I know, listen, there's the 9/11 truthers out there as well. Al-Qaeda are the ones who attacked the trade centers. Al-Qaeda operatives, Islamic fascists, Islamic terrorists are the ones who sought to inflict the harm, the death, the carnage, and so forth on 9/11. And I remember I was a young man during that time. I may have heard of the name Osama bin Laden. I was 21 or something? No, that's not right. I was probably 24. 2001, 23. I think I was 23, about to turn 24. And it was half a lifetime. Think about that, half a lifetime ago for me. And I remember watching this. I remember understanding, realizing what was happening, realizing, of course, there were other signs before it. I wasn't totally shocked that people who believe these things did what they did. But I think for a lot of people, it was clearly a wake-up call. Because, growing up in the era that I grew up in, the 80s were intense. They were. The 80s were intense. Cold War, negotiations, all this stuff. I've shared that before. As a kid, I remember watching Reagan and Gorbachev and all these sorts of things. I remember hearing about nuclear proliferation and the treaties and all these things. Star Wars, all these programs and things pertaining to the Cold War. There were movies about the Soviet Union and the communists. It was the subject in entertainment. There was a lot. You grew up when I grew up, there were a lot of movies where you walked away, a lot of television shows, a lot of America First sort of things. And we understood it was us against them. We understood largely. I mean, there were people who were sympathetic to the communists. I had some of those folks as professors at Butler. And candidly, probably not American. I had one professor at American University. I don't think she was like that. And we had a little bit different objective there anyway. But the point is that it was largely accepted. USA good, Soviet Union bad. And then the Cold War came to an end, right? The late 80s, early 90s, the Berlin Wall comes down. All these things happen. Eastern Europe is freed. They're trying to figure out how to get out of the shackles of communism. There were wars and, just lots of things that came from the end of communism and so forth in Eastern Europe and all that. But for the most part, you get to the early 90s and there was no longer... There were two superpowers when I was a kid, the United States and the Soviet Union. That ceased being the case in the 90s. And for about the next 10 years, roughly, it was the United States. The economy was roaring. There were no geopolitical foes like the Soviet Union. And it was kind of a good time to be alive. These tensions, there were tensions beneath the surface, but I think as I'm saying these words, some things are becoming clearer in my mind. I think for people that grew up watching every day, literally every day, talking about the tensions with, the Soviets, and, there were a couple of times that we were very close to going to war with the Soviet Union. And I think in a sense we let our guard down. We didn't understand how bad we were hated by groups like Al-Qaeda, people like Osama bin Laden and other radical extremists. And we got a little bit lazy. We got, we were very, very wealthy. It was a good time in the United States. And then along came 9/11, and as the Toby Keith song said, like a sucker punch came flying in from somewhere in the back. And that's what it was like. It was shocking. It was shocking to watch this happen, to see the trade towers burning and the trade towers collapsing and the Pentagon struck, and hearing the stories of Flight 93 and all these things. And then you begin to hear Osama bin Laden. You begin to hear the stories of the Mujahideen and Al-Qaeda. You begin to hear what they hate about us. You understand. You begin to put the pieces together. Lots of people begin to put the pieces together to realize these folks were basically engaged in a holy war against us. And many Americans didn't know it until 9/11. And so that was, we all have those things in our lives that are transformational, or those pivotal moments. For example, I remember Space Shuttle Challenger blowing up in 1986. I remember that. I was watching that in second grade. I remember 9/11, right? There's just a few things. I remember exactly where I was driving into work on 9/11 when I heard that there was a plane that hit the World Trade Tower. It didn't make any sense to me. I thought it was a small aircraft. That's what was reported at first. But it wasn't long until we all understood that we were at war, and it unfolded in real time on television before our very eyes. And to think that world where in the days that followed, people were in solidarity. People had American flags flying in their yard. People had American flags on their shirts. People put American flag stickers or American flags on their car. I mean, it was a time where we all just kind of realized, you know what, this is serious. This is an example of where politics ends at the water's edge. And people united. George W. Bush's approval rating skyrocketed. I mean, it was 80 or 90% or something crazy like that. We realized that we were going to have to pull together and fight these people who attacked us on 9/11. People were signing up to go enlist in the military, to defend their country, to fight these terrorists and so forth. Reminds me of Pat Tillman, who was a defensive back for the, at the time, Arizona Cardinals, who became an Army Ranger. There were all sorts of stories like this. And now, here we are 25 years later, and we don't understand that the same mindset, the same types of people, and yes, I understand Osama bin Laden is Sunni and the Iranian government is Shia. I get all that. I get that there are differences, but I also understand for the radical extremists who believes that Allah has called them to try to convert the infidel, which, by the way, if you're not Muslim, that would include you. That would include you, whether you're Christian, atheist, agnostic, Jewish, name it. If you're not a Muslim, they believe that they have a holy command to kill you. They believe this. This is not just something that they think theoretically. Yeah, we have this power and we have this authority and we're in the right. No, they believe that they are called by Allah to inflict this on civilizations. And that includes the Jewish people in the state of Israel. They call them, as I've said on this program so many times, I feel like I'm blue in the face. They call them the little Satan. They call us the great Satan. This is how they frame it. This is how they talk about us. This is how they think about us. They're on the precipice of having a nuclear weapon. And the media and the Democrat Party and apparently people on our side are now more bothered with what I just read, folks, than they are with the people who are on the other side on the precipice of getting a nuclear weapon at their very fingertips. And I'm going to go through this and I'm going to read from that article for you. But let me say this. If what I just said is true, and if the Islamic Republic of Iran is as close to having a nuclear weapon as we suspect that they could be, very, very short order. This has been a pursuit of theirs for a long, long time. It's right at their fingertips. They can almost taste it. This is the metaphorical finish line is there, and once they get it, it is a game changer. They will use it. If you think negotiating an end to a conflict and tensions is difficult now, imagine giving these maniacal lunatics a nuclear weapon. It changes absolutely everything. They can have a nuclear weapon, theoretically, if they had the capability to land in Israel. It's their neighbors. It's a very short distance. They could, again, notwithstanding the protection of Almighty God, but they have the capability. If they have the weaponry, they can strike Israel and wipe Israel off the face of the planet. Again, notwithstanding the protection of Yahweh, which shouldn't be minimized. I'm just saying this cannot be allowed to happen. This cannot be allowed to happen. And people want you to believe that Trump is trying to put a mushroom cloud over Tehran, killing innocent people, wiping out their civilization in that respect, when that's clearly not what's happening here. In fact, the last line of the post says, "God bless the people of Iran." We'll talk about this, my friends. It's not that difficult. I understand it's tits. I understand that, it's just hard for some people to stand by this. Anyway, maybe you've reached that stage, my friends, where managing your money feels like juggling more than just numbers. You've got tax planning, estate work, investment choices, a whole lot more. That's when Family Office Services can really make a difference for you and your family. The Full Suite Wealth brings all those pieces together into one cohesive strategy. Their Family Office Services give you access to a coordinated team. They give you access to that team with advanced option strategies, private equity, private credit, and legal expertise. All those things under one roof. It's about simplifying your financial life, planning for the future, and making sure your legacy stays strong for generations. If you're ready for that next level of support, visit FullSuiteWealth.com. FullSuiteWealth.com. Build your legacy, secure your future. Time out here, my friends. Back in a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Lots to unpack here. I know we're trying to go through all of these things that have been said about Trump, and even people, by the way, who are traditionally on the side of Trump. I mentioned some people want the 25th Amendment invoked. It's just a lot to unpack here. But what set people off yesterday, including some conservatives, was the post that I read at the beginning of the program. I'll read it again. Trump posted this on Truth Social, 10 or so in the morning, about 10 to 12 hours before the deadline with Iran, right? So Trump had given Iran an ultimatum: open the Strait of Hormuz, negotiate an end to this, or we're going to bomb your power plants, we're going to bomb your bridges. We're not playing around. This is unacceptable. And I'm going to read it again. So he says this in his Truth Social post: "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran." So some people heard this, read this, and they say, my goodness, Trump is preparing us for an inevitable nuclear strike on the Islamic Republic of Iran. And folks, I don't know. You fall into one of these categories if that's what you think. You're either a Trump hater, or you don't understand the things that we've been talking about on this program routinely, which is Trump is committed. And hear me, I stress that word, committed. He is absolutely committed to Iran not having a nuclear weapon. As I've said this before, I did not come up with this. A journalist from The Atlantic did. She said the media takes Trump literally, not seriously. His supporters take him seriously, not literally. When I read this, and I understand that, and I understand Sun Tzu's The Art of War, and all of that, I know for a fact Trump is not threatening to annihilate the people of Iran. When Trump's talking about this, of course, Trump uses language to keep, we've gone through this. I am tired of going through this, to be quite honest. Trump uses this language to communicate an idea. The idea that there is going to be hell to pay if Iran doesn't comply. As we talked about yesterday, Trump has backed Iran into a corner. We've taken out their leadership. We have severely damaged their military capabilities, their Navy, their Air Force, their ballistic missile programs, their nuclear facilities, their ability to pursue currently a nuclear weapon. We have done tremendous damage in these areas, and we have succeeded in our early objectives. But until this pursuit, the pursuit of a nuclear weapon, is 100% off the table, danger is in this situation. It is dangerous because, again, for reasons I laid out in the first segment, things that you know, if you've paid attention objectively over the course of at least recent history. And so when I read this, there is literally 0% of me that believes that Trump was going to nuke Tehran in the sense that he's going to drop an atomic bomb on the city like we did Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end World War II. By the way, are we going to relitigate that? People just casually act like, leaders have to make terrible decisions at some point. Should we not have done that in Nagasaki and Hiroshima? That's clearly not, Trump is not going to do that. But he wants the regime to know that their civilization, their Islamic Republic, their way of, creating a society, they're forcing it down the throats of people, he said could be on the verge of dying tonight. Now, of course, that's been lifted because they've negotiated at least a temporary ceasefire. But Iran has routinely squirmed out of circumstances before. They want to delay. They want to play games. They want to look like they're following the rules while all the while pursuing this dangerous nuclear capability, which they will absolutely, mark my words, if they have it, they will use it to threaten Israel, the United States, the region. These people are maniacal lunatics. I cannot stress this enough. That's what Trump's committed to stopping. In fact, I've been thinking about this. People who read this post and they've gone out to social media and called for the 25th Amendment, that would be Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example. Of course, retired. Well, Trump helped retire her, I guess. But she's out there calling for the 25th Amendment because she's claiming that this is Trump threatening to nuke Iran. I just, first of all, deeds and words are not the same thing. Second of all, if the Islamic Republic of Iran is who I've said that they are throughout this program or throughout the past several weeks, months, you go back years with us talking about Iran, even going back to the days of the JCPOA, the Iranian nuclear deal, and the early days of this podcast. We talked about that in the early days. I remember talking about that early on. We started this program August 10th, 2015, which was right around the time the nuclear deal was put in place. And we talked about it then. I remember. And the things I've said about Iran today, you go back and pull those old shows, will sound remarkably similar to what I'm saying today, my friends, because that's who they are. That's what we're up against. Now, again, notwithstanding the protection and providence of Yahweh, Almighty God, the God of the Bible, protecting the Jewish state, which is a big deal, but just statistically, take that big factor out of the equation. Let me ask you this. Do you think it's more probable that there would be a mushroom cloud over Tel Aviv or Tehran if the Iranian government, the Iranian regime had a nuclear weapon? If you think for a moment that the bigger danger of being a nuclear target is in Iran and not... Now listen, Israel may preemptively strike, but the greater danger is Iran using that weapon aggressively. That is a non-negotiable. They cannot be allowed to have this weapon. They absolutely cannot. And to be this concerned about words and tone and the way that it's being said and how it makes people feel, quite honestly, I don't care. I really don't. Because what I care about are results. There is no word or tone or accusation or threat that Trump could levy. There's no curse word. There's no string of expletives, which I'm not endorsing, by the way. I'm not condoning or endorsing the use of that, but there is nothing that Trump could say that's anywhere near. Folks, nuclear holocaust is what Iran wants. That's what they desire. That's what from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free ultimately means, the annihilation of the Jewish people. The Iranian government would love to do that. They would be gleeful if they could do that. There's not a term I could use that accurately describes the wickedness and evil of these folks. And to compare Trump's terms and tweets and posts on Truth Social as anything remotely comparable is either just ignorant, is either naive, or just not understanding what's at stake, not understanding what Trump is really trying to accomplish. Trump is trying with everything he can to prevent a nuclear Iran. It's not about threatening to nuke Iran. It's about threatening to do whatever it takes to prevent Iran from getting that weapon. Man, this is maddening. From people that should know better, my friends. There's a lot of confusion out there about kratom. You've probably heard the headlines, and most of those are based on synthetic junk that isn't real kratom at all. Real kratom is tested, it's handled with care, and that's exactly what you get from Christopher's Organic Botanicals, a family-run company that partners directly with farmers in Indonesia. Every batch is lab tested for purity. There's no chemicals, there's no fillers, there's no shortcuts. This is a trusted herbal option that's been used for generations. And it is a real alternative for people looking for something that doesn't come with a warning label, I should say, that's as long as a CVS receipt. Do your research. If you decide that this is a product that makes sense for you, start with their Kratom Starter Pack. Use coupon code Todd Huff. You'll save 10% off your first order. Christopher's Organic Botanicals.com. Coupon code Todd Huff saves you 10%. Truth, tradition, transparency, and yes, my friends, time out for me. Back in a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Let's talk about something else that's important. That's your money. You've worked hard for it, but is it working hard for you and for what you believe in? At 48 Financial, they specialize in biblically responsible investing. That means they screen out companies that don't align with your faith and your values. They'll help you create a plan that fits your goals, your purpose. And the best part is that they will show you how your current investments stack up against your values. So, to figure that out, all you have to do is go to 48financial.com/Todd. That's 48financial.com/Todd. Take a quick and easy assessment, and they will help you see to what degree your investments align with your values. 4-8 Financial, helping you align your money with your mission. Well, I'm going to reference this. I'm going to reference this really quickly. See, I've referenced it throughout. Headline here at CNN: an eclectic bipartisan group suddenly calls for removing Trump using the 25th Amendment. The 25th Amendment talk is back. Lawmakers have repeatedly floated the method for removing a president and as laid out in the Constitution in recent years, and Donald Trump's cabinet apparently discussed the option more earnestly than many initially realized after the January 6th, 2021 Capitol attack. To successfully remove Trump, a majority of his I'm reading from CNN, by the way. This was written by Aaron Blake. To successfully remove Trump, a majority of his cabinet and his vice president would have to be supportive, and there are no indications any cabinet officials are considering it right now. Of course there's not, Aaron. You got to be kidding, dude. Blah, blah, blah. The Trump's comment Tuesday morning that, quote, a whole civilization will die tonight unless Iran makes a deal spurred increasing calls among a somewhat odd amalgamation of voices to invoke the amendment. Less than 2 hours before his 8 p.m. deadline for Iran, Trump announced he'd agreed to a 2-week ceasefire conditional on Tehran opening the Strait of Hormuz. Can they celebrate that for a moment? I mean, if they truly thought we were on the verge of nuking Tehran, if they truly thought that, could they not at least celebrate this? What is wrong with these people? Democratic lawmakers, he writes, and right-wing voices had spent the previous 24 hours expressing concerns about just how far the president was willing to take things in the Iran war. Not this host, my friends. Again, are they so caught up in listening to the media that they can't see this for what it clearly is? Are they trying to posture as though this is an opportunity for them to say, well, here's something I disagree with Trump on? Is there something else going on here? I don't know. I'm not going to speak for these folks. But that's the point. That's the point. My goodness, it's so maddening to me. It is so blatantly obvious to me what Trump has been doing. For no one to know how far Trump was going to take this, that's the point. That is exactly why he's been doing this. Because, my friends, of what's at stake, which I've laid out clearly throughout this program. His threats to strike power plants and other civilian infrastructure have been decried as war crimes. We've talked about that on here. And some even said they feared the administration's threats alluded to the potential use of nuclear weapons, which the White House has denied considering. Again, there's not going to be a mushroom cloud over the city center of Iran. It's not going to happen. If Tehran had the weapon, they would absolutely try to make there be a mushroom cloud over Tel Aviv. I hesitate saying Jerusalem because, of course, that's where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is, the Dome of the Rock. But Washington, D.C., they would love nothing more, my friends, than to hit these places where they believe the infidel resides, and they believe that they have been ordered by Allah to take them out, to take us out, I should say. It's mostly Democrats who have called to invoke the amendment. But notably, he continues here, some conservatives and other recent Trump allies have taken up the call as well. How do we 25th Amendment his AWS? That's what Alex Jones apparently asked a guest on Monday's show. By Tuesday morning, right-leaning advocates for the step spanned from more extreme influencers to former Trump White House official Anthony Scaramucci, which, I mean, come on, of course. Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted 25th Amendment in all caps, posted that to X after Trump's quote about Iran's civilization dying. She called it evil and madness. Some congressional Democrats reposted it. The 25th Amendment needs to be invoked. Right-wing podcaster Candace Owens added later in the morning. Who else here? I go down the list, go through this article. David French, that's not surprising. One of them, this is another individual who raised concerns about Trump's intentions, former Trump ally Tucker Carlson, who on his show Monday criticized Trump like never before. Folks, I don't know what's so hard about this. I really don't. I gotta go. Have a great day. Thanks for listening, SDG.